Right now, we will work with materials from the book English File Advanced level. So let's start. What's your personality? Planner or spontaneous? Are you a perfectionist who hates leaving things unfinished? Are you someone who hates being under pressure and tends to over prepare? Are you a bit disorganized and forgetful? Are you someone who puts things off until the last minute? Imagine you have bought a piece of furniture that requires assembly, wardrobe or a cupboard. Which of these are you more likely to do? Check that you have all the items and the tools you need before you start. Carefully read the instructions and follow them to the letter. Quickly read through the instructions to get the basic idea of what you have to do. Start assembling it right away. Check the instructions only if you get stuck. Before you go on holiday, which of these do you do? Plan every detail of your holiday. Put together a rough itinerary, but make sure you leave yourself plenty of free time. Get an idea what kind of things you can do, but not make a decision until you get there. Book the holiday at the last minute and plan hardly anything in advance. Head or heart? If an argument starts when you are with friends, do you face it head on and say what you think? Try to find a solution yourself. Try to keep everyone happy. Do anything to avoid hurting people's feelings. Imagine you had the choice between two flats to rent. Would you write down what ideal flat would be like and then see which one was the most similar? Make a list of the pros and cons of each one. Just go with your gut feeling. Consider carefully how each flat would suit the other people living with you. Imagine a friend of yours started going out with someone new and they ask you for your opinion. If you really didn't like the person, would you tell them exactly what you thought? Be honest, but as tactful as possible. Try to avoid answering the question directly. Tell a white lie. Introvert or extrovert? You are out with a group of friends. Do you say hardly anything? Say a little less than most people? Talk a lot? Do nearly all the talking? When you meet a new group of people, do you try to stay with people you already know? Have to think hard about how to keep the conversation going? Try to get to know as many people as possible. Just enjoy yourself. If your phone rings while you are in the middle of something, do you ignore it and continue with what you're doing? Answer it quickly but say you'll call back. Have a conversation but make sure you keep it short. Welcome the interruption and enjoy a nice long chat. Do you have any childhood memories of the feelings or events below? Do you know roughly how old you were at the time? Choose one feeling and one event to talk about. Feelings: boredom, amazement, excitement, frustration, pain, sadness, shame, embarrassment, disappointment. Events: a day out, the birth of a brother or sister, managing to do something for the first time, the death of a pet, getting wonderful or disappointing present, a festival or celebration. Are you the kind of person who regularly gets rid of old clothes, or do you tend to keep things forever? Did you used to get into trouble a lot when you were a child? Do you consider yourself a person who usually gets their own way? Why? Do you tend to keep up to date with your work or studies, or do you often get behind? Do you think young drivers get stopped by the police more than older drivers? Do you think this is fair? Have you ever got caught cheating in an exam? Have you ever cheated in an exam and got away with it? Do you think going on holiday together is a good way to really get to know people? How often and where do you usually get your hair cut? If an electrical appliance doesn't work, do you try to sort it out yourself or do you immediately get an expert to come and fix it? If you were able to get just one room in your house redecorated, which would it be and why? Do you think that women are better than men at getting presents for people? If you were invited to a karaoke evening, would you try to get out of going? If you were supposed to get a flight the day after there had been a serious plane crash, would you cancel it? Is there anyone in your family or group of friends who really gets on your nerves? What kind of things do your parents get you to do around the house? Talk to a partner. Are there any noises that really annoy you? Are you affected by them in your daily life? Is there anything you can do to avoid or stop them? Are there any sounds that you really love or that make you feel good? Do you prefer music or silence in these situations? In bars and restaurants? In the supermarket? In a gym? When a plane is taking off or landing? When you're put on hold on the phone? Why? If you prefer music, what kind of music do you prefer? Talk to a partner about as many of the topics as you can. Tell your partner about a book that you couldn't put down, you started but couldn't finish, you decided to read after seeing the film, you think would make a good film, you bought but never opened, you've read but can't remember much about, you were forced to read at school and hate it. People are talking about it at the moment. You feel ought to have read but haven't. Things we hate waiting for and how long before we freak out. According to a US survey, there is a limit to how long people will wait for something before getting annoyed and trying to do something about it. The average wait in different situations before people lose patience is for a blind date to arrive, for a bus or train, for a car in front of you to start moving when the light turns green, for a table in a restaurant, for people to stop talking during a film at the cinema, for the doctor, for your partner to get ready to go out, in a queue at a coffee shop. Do women really want to marry for money? According to a report from the London School of Economics, women are now more determined than ever to find a partner who will improve their financial prospects. Women's aspirations to marry up, if they can, to a man who is better educated and higher earning persist in most European countries, says the report's author, Catherine Hakim. Women continue to use marriage as an alternative or supplement to their employment careers, she concludes. By logical extension, it would appear men are keen to marry down, although nobody seems to query, much less gather statistics on their matrimonial motives. Arguably, there is nothing surprising in these findings, especially when you consider women with young children. A recent study by the National Center for Social Research revealed that a third of all mothers would prefer to give up their jobs if they could afford to, and three-fifths said they would want to work fewer hours. We asked journalist Jemima Lewis and novelist Jojo Moyes what they thought. Yes, says Jemima Lewis. Women want rich husbands. Perhaps we don't often say it, perhaps we don't even like to admit it to ourselves, but women are practical creatures. A rich husband gives you options. One of the perks of being female is that you grow up knowing there's a slim chance that you might be able to marry a millionaire and retire before you hit middle age. If he is rich enough, your husband might pay for teams of nannies to look after your children while you're busy yourself with Pilates. Working mother like me Working mother like me to tend sorry, Working mother like me tend to regard such wives with a disapproving eye. We call them trophy wives, as if to distinguish them from the real thing, but that is partly just to distract ourselves from the envy inside. Whether you fill your days with Pilates or child rearing, not having to work is, well, less like hard work. Unfortunately, rich husbands like handsome princes are not easy to come by. Most of us not moving in millionaire circles are likely to fall in love with a and marry a more normal bloke. In the meantime, you might have built up a career that you are proud of and reluctant to give up. If you then have a baby, you are doomed to an inner life of conflict and guilt as you try to find a way to bring up your child without going bankrupt or insane. Like a winning lottery ticket, a rich husband would solve your problems at a stroke, allowing you to calibrate your work life balance to suit yourself rather than your mortgage provider. No, says Jojo Moyes. Today's young women, having observed their mothers juggling a full time job and all the domestic responsibility, having the odd nervous breakdown, and still having to look glamorous, have now decided they'd prefer to be kept by a wealthy husband. Who can blame them? There are times, usually when sick children and deadlines collide, that I think the same thing. But marry rich and you may marry men who use you as a commodity. You may spend much of your time alone. A high flying career often means an absent husband and father. You can marry for money, but it's not a marriage, it's a deal. And I suspect only the toughest of women can see that with the clarity it requires. The divorce courts are littered with high earners as well as the shattered dreams of traded in and middle aged wives who have been replaced by a younger, more glamorous model. My children have long played a game called Who's Got the Sorest Face in Waitrose. It's always the wives in the really expensive cars. My husband and I have taken turns as the highest earner. Earning my own money means I don't have to justify my shoe habit and he doesn't shoulder the mortgage alone. And having a career brings me more contentment than having a designer handbag. So I wouldn't be delighted if my daughter ended up with a dropout, but I'd feel worse if she thought the most important thing about a man was his bank balance. Ask and answer the questions in small groups. Do you ever wish you could meet a wealthy partner? Do you ever wish you had been born in another decade or century? Do you ever wish you could have a year off to travel? Do you ever wish you could learn a new skill? Do you ever wish you had chosen to study different subjects at school or university? Do you ever wish you had more free time for your hobbies? Do you ever wish you lived in another town or city? How to survive living with your parents. If you are among the quarter of young adults still living at home with mom and dad, read on. Around a quarter of young adults in the UK are living with their mom and dad, the highest number since records began in 1996. They are the victims of rising house prices, a difficult job market for young people, and worst of all, they now suffer the mental anguish of living with someone who used to brush their teeth for them. If you're one of them, these tips might help you to survive. Do your share of the cooking, cleaning, and washing up. Don't let yourself into child mode just because it's the house you grew up in. Housework is just as tedious for your parents as for the rest of us. Do your share, or you lose the right to call yourself an adult. Save, save, save. The major advantage of living at home is the price. Unless your parents are charging you full market rate rent, in which case surely move, you should be able to squirrel away some money. If you're working, living at home and not saving any money, you aren't planning for the future at all. It won't end well. Have an exit plan. Know how, if not exactly when, you plan to live. In the darker moments of parent-child cohabitation, when you see in your parents' behavior a worrying image of the kind of a person you might end up being, the knowledge that you have an escape plan will be the only thing that keeps you sane. Go out a lot. Of course, you and your parents love each other very much, but that doesn't mean you like each other. Frankly, if you've lived together all your life and you don't sometimes hate them, you haven't been paying attention. So go out. Get to know these strange new housemates. This is a good this is as good a time as any to find out about your parents' past history. Learning to see them as individuals and not just as people who are this solely to look after you both physically and emotionally will make you a better person. It will also make it easier to forgive them when they irritate you beyond belief. With a partner, choose one of the topics below that you have some experience of. Think of some advice that you could post on WikiHow. Write headings for at least 4 tips and plan what information to give under the headings. Reason for the advice. Examples. How to survive a visit from difficult relatives. How to survive a trip to the dentist's. How to survive a children's birthday party. How to survive a family holiday. Tell your tips to another pair, see what they think of your tips, and if they have anything to add. Using all the ideas, write a short paragraph for each heading. How to survive exam stress. Organize. Make sure you have all the things you need for the exam the night before. Stationery, your identity card, etc. Last minute searching for things can really stress you out before an exam. Diet. Never go to an exam on an empty stomach, as you can end up concentrating more on your hunger than your exam paper. Before you go to the exam, eat foods that are energy producing, like fruit and protein, and at the same time not too heavy so that they won't make you sleepy. If possible, take a water bottle to the exam hall to rehydrate. Relax. 1 hour before the exam, relax. Don't feed yet more information to your already overfilled brain. Whatever you have learned, be confident of it and try to picture a calm stream or take some deep breaths. You have done your presentation and now you should prepare yourself to give your best. Plan. Once you get the question paper in your hand, read all the questions and make a quick rough plan of how you're going to invest your time in order to do your best. Mark the questions which you know you can answer easily and do them first. This will make you feel more confident. Never lose your cool if a question comes up which you didn't prepare for. It is too late now and your focus should be on the present moment. Cross-check. It is very, very important to check your answers again at the end. Try to allow yourself a final 15 minutes to read through your paper and make any necessary corrections. Forget. Often, after an exam is over, people worry about the results or waste time discussing what their friends have written. Realize that the time to do something about the results was over when you handed in the answer sheet, and knowing how your friend did isn't going to help you. Concentrate on how you will face your next exam, if you have one, or just relax and be happy that it's over. Try something new for 30 days. Think of a 30-day challenge that you would like to do. Make notes under the following headings: what the challenge is, why I have chosen it, what my previous experience is, how I intend to go about it, how I think it might change me. Read the tips for giving a presentation. Then, in small groups, give a short presentation about your challenge. Listen to other people's presentations and ask questions and give advice if you can. Presentation tips. Organize your presentation logically so you can remember what you're going to say. Speak slowly and pause between important points. Make eye contact with the people you're talking to. Don't read your notes, use your own words. If the audience asks you questions, answer them honestly and clearly. Talk in small groups, use some of the phrases from B. Okay, so that was before. Do you know anyone who is obsessed with their appearance? Do you know anyone who is obsessed with a celebrity? Do you know anyone who's obsessed with a sports person or team, a particular object, keeping fit, healthy eating, organizing or cleaning, a hobby or free time activity, anything else? Complete the sentences in your own words, then use them to start conversations with your partner. What I would find most difficult about living abroad is. What I love about living here is. What I least like about living here is. The person I get on with best in my family is. The place where I can relax the most is. The reason I decided to carry on learning English was. The King James the King James Language School. A report. Introduction. The aim of this report is to assess students' satisfaction with the classes and facilities at the King James Language School and to make suggestions for improvements. Testing and registration of new students. Most students were satisfied with the testing process for new students. However, they complained about the long queues at registration. We believe it would be preferable either to have more staff available to deal with registration or to give students a specific day and time to register. The classes. In general, students rated the teachers very highly. Their main criticisms were of class sizes and the length of classes. As regards class sizes, most students think there should be no more than 12 students in a class. In terms of the duration of classes, they officially last an hour, but in practice they are usually only 45 minutes because of latecomers. We propose that all students who arrive more than 5 minutes late should have to wait until the break for admittance. The Self-Study Center. It is generally thought that the Self-Study Center, while useful, has two major drawbacks. There are not enough computers, and at peak times they are always occupied. Also, the center closes at 7 p.m., so students who come to the later classes cannot use the center at all. We suggest purchasing more computers and extending the opening hours to 9 p.m. The cafeteria. The cafeteria was recently replaced by vending machines for drinks and snacks. Although it is true that people often had to wait to be served, Most students greatly preferred the cafeteria and would like it to be reopened. Conclusion. Overall, the majority of students are extremely positive about the school and feel that if the suggested changes are implemented, it will be an even better place to study. So those are materials I found useful from that book. English File, Advanced Level.